Hi everyone, my name is Dana. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I'm going to be going over a list of my own creation of how to spot the difference between an actual good ethical dog breeder and someone who is a backyard breeder. So when I say backyard breeder, that does not mean they're raising puppies in their backyard. And a lot of times it's actually good to raise puppies at a separate location if you have a crazier, louder household with lots of dogs. A backyard breeder is basically anyone who is unethically producing puppies, raising puppies, and homing puppies. So there's a lot that goes into the process of raising puppies, and a backyard breeder is a person who will skip out on a lot of these things and also do things to mislead potential buyers to maximize their profits at their own puppies and dogs' expenses. It also can be someone who's intentionally producing puppies by accident or just making puppies to make puppies with no real purpose, but this is very much targeting the people who produce designer dogs and upcharge these puppies at such a profit at their own expense and at the buyer's expenses too. So, without further ado, I'm going to get right into it, and these are some things to watch out for if you are looking for a good breeder. Or go through a shelter, because guess what dogs end up in the shelters? Only dogs that are produced by unethical breeding practices. They will never end up there if it's an actual good ethical breeder, and we will get more into that. So starting off, the big two. Does your breeder do any health testing or OFAs or pen-hip testing or anything to make sure the dog's structure is good and the dog's genetics are good? If the breeder is not doing any of these things, that is unethical, because they could be intentionally producing puppies that will have physical ailments and issues for the rest of their life. Hip dysplasia. This guy right here, I don't know if you can see him or not, at 6 years old, he was crying. He couldn't walk without crying. And I take him to the emergency vet, and they think, oh, he has Lyme's disease. He doesn't have Lyme's disease. Hate the emergency vet that I have around here. And then I take him to our actual vet when they're open. Yep, he has hip dysplasia. So I had to pump him up on painkillers, joint supplements, all different sorts of things to get him to where he wasn't in pain anymore. And then I did lots of hindquarter awareness building. So at 11, he's actually doing better, in my opinion, than at 6 years old. But a problem that any owner shouldn't have to face. It's a very scary and sad thing because you can't tell the dog why they're in pain, and you can't tell how much they're in pain, because even if they're not crying, dogs are tough. The showing pain is a weakness. So even now, when he's not yelping all the time, he could still be sore, and I don't know about it. And the other side of things is Buddy, for example. He's not well bred, but he's a purebred. Just because you're getting a purebred dog does not mean they are well bred either. He has epilepsy. He's on seizure medication. Border collies are very prone to it. If you do ethical breeding, typically you look for an older stud dog to make sure that there isn't any epilepsy from those lines. Then obviously, ethically, you can't wait until the female's old, otherwise that's difficult on her body. But then you keep an eye on all the puppies, and if one of them has epilepsy, you check the lines of all the studs, but if all those lines are clean, that's your female. You wash the female. No more puppies, and you wash all the puppies. They cannot have puppies. Another thing to watch out for is if the breeder is charging extra pricing for rare colors or different pricing between male and female dogs. That is another sign of backyard breeding. If they view a color as more valuable or a certain sex as more valuable, that's basic. Dogs are not trading cards. They are living creatures. Colors are not rare. That is genetics. And there's a reason why some colors are rare, because they are associated with things that can be bad for the dog's health. For example, the blue color in border collies can typically link with alopecia. Piebald and white face, or having white spots in the ears in border collies, can link to deafness and blindness sometimes. So an ethical breeder shouldn't be producing dogs that have, lots of white on their faces. So for example, if Buddy was intact, I would make him not intact. There's no reason for him to be having puppies. He has so much white on his face, that is a risk for bad things. He has a lot of white on his ears, that is a risk for bad things. Obviously, genetics can throw a curveball. I've seen it where there are border collies that barely even have a blaze on their nose, and they produce a whole white-faced puppy. But that is where, okay, in that contract, this puppy cannot have puppies. You make sure it gets fixed. It is a breach of contract if you let this dog produce puppies. And that's something you have to avoid and be mindful of as a breeder, but also it's a good thing as a puppy owner that the breeders care about this. Even though it feels stuffy and it feels stifling, that means they want the best for these puppies. They care about your puppy enough to make sure that nothing bad happens to it in your care by setting you up for success. Another big sign is how long these puppies are staying with their moms, and if these puppies are being claimed basically right out of the womb. If the breeder is not doing temperament tests, that is a big sign that it's not setting these puppies up for success. So I've seen a few breeders who go, oh, purple puppy and yellow puppy still don't have a home, when they're deaf and blind nuggets. You don't even know what they are yet, like what kind of dog they will be. Obviously, as a puppy grows older, their personality will change, and one that might be really confident as a puppy might get a little bit more anxious as a grown-up. However, temperament testing is a great way to set up future owners for success, because at least when they are getting the puppy, it is as similar to what they want lifestyle-wise compared to just, oh, that one's the prettiest, but I like to have lots of people over and this dog is peeing its pants in the corner, but at least it looks pretty. No, you want a dog that is social. So who cares if I wanted a spotted dog and I get a solid colored dog, if my solid colored dog is a lot happier being with me and I'm a lot happier being with it than my pretty spotted dog who hates its life would be. So these are things to think about. At around 6 weeks, this is when the puppies are kind of starting to get eligible for even temperament testing. They don't even have that yet. And if these puppies are leaving their home, if these puppies already have a home before then, that is a pretty big sign that things might not be that great situationally for getting a puppy from there. Big reason as to why it's so important is the longer they stay with their litter mates and their mom in the beginning, the more social skills they do develop. Obviously, there's a thing called litter mate syndrome, but at this point in the process, it's not something to be worried about. It's actually worse to remove them earlier than to worry about litter mate syndrome. They need these corrections, they need these social skills, and if you're in a pack mentality, it's a lot easier for a puppy to be confident than being removed and put by themselves and then exposed to all these things. So the longer they stay with that pack mentality, the more confidence and social skills they'll get. I'm going to talk about French Bulldog breeders for this one. These are the current breed that are just being absolutely ruined by backyard breeders. If they are intentionally producing out of standard dogs, that is a big, big, big red flag. Even though, and this is really a beauty is the eye of the beholder thing, I don't see it in fluffy Frenchies or the naked Frenchies. I don't see it. I'm not a big Frenchie guy, but even those dogs in of themselves that I see do not look like they are French Bulldogs, because French Bulldogs do not produce the fluffy gene or the naked gene, so they have to be mixed. Gunner, wake up. Wakey, wakey. He's having a big dream. They have to be mixed with another dog to produce these traits, which then a lot of backyard breeders will say, oh, if you put two mutts together, they'll only take the good traits and leave out the bad traits. That is so unscientific. It is not even funny. That is not how genetics work. If you put two people who are at high risk of cancer, it doesn't double negative and make the child a low risk of cancer. No, that kid will probably get cancer. Same with if one person has the risk of Huntington's disease, and so does another person. They carry, one of those copies. You put them together, their kid will definitely get Huntington's disease. Like, that's just how it goes. It is not exempt from the dog world. And I get it, because backyard breeders are very good at selling. That's their thing. They're very good at marketing. However, do your research, avoid these things, and don't get tricked. Because I've seen someone who got a puppy, the dog had a tumor in its eyeball that was growing hair, and then they got this puppy. The breeder ghosted them, and then they had to pay even more thousands of dollars to get this tumor in the puppy's eyeball removed, a fluffy Frenchie. Ridiculous. And the fact that people keep on falling for it is ridiculous. And people do have the mentality of, oh, if I don't buy these puppies, they'll just end up in a shelter. Then you're enabling these breeders to keep on doing it. You can always wait for the puppies to end up in a shelter, and then you can get one from there. You're supporting a humane society then. And these breeders are then losing money, which will then deter them from producing more puppies. Like I said, an ethically bred puppy will never end up in a shelter. So if you keep on getting these from unethical breeders, it only hurts dogs in the long run, because it's enabling people to keep on making these horribly deformed dogs with horrible genetic ailments and physical ailments, and then keep on filling up shelters. Obviously, there are strays. Obviously, things happen that way, but I see so many French bulldogs, so many doodles in shelters nowadays. Like, they are overpopulating the pit bull mixes in a lot of places I see, honestly. So if you want a doodle, if you want a French bulldog, go to shelters and support them. You can get them for so much cheaper, and you can get them in designer colors too, probably, anyways. And instead of paying thousands and thousands of dollars, you only have to pay like $100. So do that instead. Or realize that your dogs are a living creature. They are not a thing. So getting them based off of their appearance as opposed to the content of their character is in of itself a little bit diabolical. Another thing, this kind of ties in with the matching puppies before they even kind of are developed, but if a breeder does not have a wait list, that's another sign. Like I said, I've seen a few posts where people go, these puppies don't have a home picked out yet. In 2 weeks, if they don't have a home, I'm taking them to the shelter. If they don't have a wait list where people go on there and then you match the puppies to these people based off of the wait list, that is probably a sign that they are not a good breeder. That being said, a wait list is a little bit tricky because there are some good breeders who don't have them, and this one is a little bit more tech savvy. You have to be more on top of your bookkeeping and getting contact of people and making sure that everyone's updated. So this one isn't as big of a deal. If they are checking a lot of the other boxes but they don't have a wait list, this one might not be a deal breaker for me personally. However, if you're on the fence and then they go, oh yeah, you're next in line, you get a puppy, as opposed to, okay, I put you on my wait list, these are the things you want, and if I have a puppy that matches it, I will reach out to you, and I will keep in contact. Are you interested in this pairing? Yes, no? Okay, you said no, I will keep you on my wait list, and then the next pairing I'll reach out to you. Okay, here are 3 puppies that match. You're able to pick any, or you can pass and then wait until you find one that you feel like is perfect for you. Because a breeder will match a puppy to you temperament first, and then if they do have one in the color you're looking for or the gender you're looking for, they'll say, okay, here's 3 that match temperament wise. I do have one of this color and I do have, one of the gender. Do you want to pick out any of these puppies? Like, say there's 3 out of 12 puppies that match. And then you, as the waitlist person, if you're first in the waitlist for a puppy that kind of is this temperament, you would get first pick out of those 3. And then if there's someone who has similar wants to you, then they could pick from those 2, etc., etc. And then if you pass on all three, then the person behind you with the same temperament would then get a pick of all three, etc., etc., etc. You kind of see where I'm going with this? That being said, it is kind of confusing. So that's where not having a wait list and instead just, okay, I had this litter, who is interested in a puppy that is like this, and then a bunch of people file in. You can then from there pick from those people. I don't really know how it would work that way. I prefer a wait list, but if they don't do it that way, I personally would say it's not unethical. I just feel like it makes it a little bit more stressful in different ways. I would rather have the stress of bookkeeping and everything before the puppies happen than, okay, puppies happen and now I have to do this and this and this too. Great. If a breeder doesn't have a contract or a take back policy, that's pretty much given that they're not an ethical breeder. For me, and for all the breeders I know, if these puppies are returned, it has to go back to the breeder. If it doesn't work out, these puppies have to come back. And in the contract, typically breeders make it where you have to update them yearly with front and side and back photos of the dogs to make sure that they are not being abused and they are healthy. So like if these dogs are being made overweight, that is something the breeder will say, no, this is unacceptable. You have to do something about this. This is not how I want my dogs to live. This is not healthy for them. Same with underweight, that you have to make sure they gain weight or else I'm taking this dog back. And that's part of the contract. If the dogs are being abused, they take them back and you don't get your money back. And then they can find a new home for these dogs. Typically, also the breeder will go through an AKC microchip so they can put their name first on the microchip, because some people would rather be sneaky about it and try to rehome these dogs to someone else. And then you as the breeder have to write off on that. Same thing with any breeding practices. Typically the breeder will make it where, okay, the first litter you have, this puppy's still in my name. So if I disagree with it, I'm not signing off on the litter and you're going to be fined. So good luck. To deter from unethical breeding. And like I said, it feels like, okay, this is a lot of control. Why are they being so controlling? But if you want to unethically breed, then those puppies aren't for you. Whereas if you are even interested in breeding, the breeder will help you find a good stud. Or if you have a stud dog, the breeder will help you find suitable females that do represent your male well and can really help you start off your kennel as, you know, a breeder. But if you just want the quick cash, that's exactly what the breeders are trying to avoid. And they're putting their puppies first. And that kind of is a dead giveaway that you are not the right owner for these puppies. If the parents are not being proven, if the male and female are not being proven, if they have these two dogs and all they do is lay around all day and then one day they decided to boom, boom, bang, bang, and now puppies are happening, that's another good sign that it is unethical breeding practices. That being said, however, typically a female dog is a little more undertitled, at least for her first litter, because there is a window of time where it is ethical before it can get more dangerous for a female. So you don't have until the female's 7 before, having puppies. That being said, you can have a few litters spread out and then it's not as detrimental. But the male, on the other hand, typically, ethically, you wait until this male has proven he's fine. You wait for that. And then from there, that is when you go, okay, I'm going to stud out my male now because he's doing really well. And that might be 3 years. If you can just speed run all of that and prove him in 3 years, good for you. However, if, you in this economy, that might be a little bit more tricky. You have more time to make that happen. It's not like they have the same internal clock that is ticking before it's like, okay, I don't want my dog to kick the bucket. So not proving the parents, obviously do research. If the female is showing promise in the ring, that's a very good first step. So if the person who owns the female, like for me, for example, Emma is not master anything, but we are proving ourselves in obedience, in fast cat, in agility, in fetch trials, in trick titles, in canine good citizenship. We're doing all of that. So in that sense, she is doing very well. And even though we haven't mastered it, you can watch the runs and see the potential. You can see that she is stable in public. You can see, okay, yeah, this dog, I'm not super worried about it, if that makes sense. This also ties into letting the puppies leave too early and not having a wait list, letting people pick the puppies. That being said, if you are working with someone who's a well-known trainer, if they know what they want, if they're a well-known breeder, also typically with a stud dog, instead of a stud fee, sometimes they'll say, I want first pick. That's different. But in that case, you still do the temperament testing, and then for the person with first pick can base off the temperament testing and go, yeah, this is what I want. If they are reputable, if they are trustworthy, you know it. But for the general public, you do not let them pick the puppies. Like I said, people get attached very easily. Even for me, Ammo's breeders said, oh, do you want to come and meet them? Like before temperament testing happens and before I match them? I said, no, because I did not want to get attached and then be disappointed with the puppy I was matched with, which I was already attached to Ammo. I saw her photo when she was a deafblind nugget, and for some reason, I love her, even though I didn't even know her, and she had no personality. She was just deaf and blind, but there's something about her that just spoke to me, and then, wow, it was fate. I got her. But after, like, I saw the puppy pictures, and I already was drawn to her, I was like, no, keep my eyes closed. I don't want to get attached because this is the one I want, and I'm going to be so heartbroken if I don't get matched to her, if I develop more of a connection to a dog I've never even met. So, like I said, I'm glad it all worked out. But that's a big reason, is I picked her out based off of her appearance. I never met her. There was something about her that spoke to me, and it wasn't her temperament. She was deaf and blind and a nugget. Like, at that point, it was something about her appearance, and I can't really pinpoint it. I saw all these other ones, and I went, oh, cute, oh my gosh, that's the one I want, cute. I don't know. And then another thing to look out for is super expensive. So for me, I mean, you can go on Good Dog. That's the one that I kind of use. Go on there and you can find ethical breeders and compare the prices to unethical breeders. And you can see that unethical breeders and good breeders are charging basically the same, and the ethical breeders might be charging less in some cases than the unethical ones, especially in the case of designer breeds. For me, my best example is looking up golden retrievers and then golden doodles. They are typically very on par price-wise, or the doodles are more expensive. And the thing is with these designer breeds is an ethical breeder would never allow this situation to happen. They have it in their contract. You cannot produce intentionally bred mixed breeds with these. And if you do, you're fined, and then I get my dog back. Like, they are not for it. I will not sign off on the litter. So even though with mixed breeds, there's really no sign off. But I will not approve of this. I get my dog back if I see that a mutt happens because of you, and you're fined such and such amount of money per puppy born. And then I get that money to really deter from them intentionally breeding these designer breeds. So, that being said, you know that these dogs that are being put together to make these designer breeds are not already ethically bred. Because if they were, this wouldn't happen. They still wouldn't have, they either would not have one of the parents anymore, or both the parents, or it just wouldn't be happening in general. So because of that, it is pretty obvious already that genetically these puppies are being started very poorly. They are not off to a great start. So that's something you as an owner have to be mindful about. Okay, I'm going to fork out $3,500 for this golden doodle who will probably get hip dysplasia because the parents weren't health tested, and then the fact that they're even producing these puppies means the grandparents probably weren't health tested either. Even if there's champions in the bloodline, it doesn't matter if there's one champion that's a great grandfather. That's like 16 dogs. It's not his genetics that are overpowering everything. there are 16 other dogs' genetics that are playing a part in this puzzle. And with designer breeds, they are not built the same. A poodle is not built the same as a golden retriever. So even if, on the very off chance, they test the poodle and they test the golden retriever for OFAs, will they be put proportionately together structurally? In most cases, no. So they could get the poodle's hips and then the golden retriever's front and then the poodle's neck and the golden retriever's tail and the poodle's hocks and the golden retriever's head. Like, it could be, it's never put together proportionately in most cases. Do I know a lot about their structures? No, I'm not a poodle person. I'm a border collie person. But I know enough about dogs in general where in those cases it's not okay, especially when you get like a Cavapoo, where Cavaliers are very squat dogs, and then even miniature poodles, they're tall. They're tall, limber little dogs. Proportionately, that is a recipe for trouble. Obviously, with littler dogs, there's less weight, but they also have littler bones. So this was my list of things to look out for an ethical breeder. If you have anything to add to this list, I kind of threw it together really quickly because I wanted to do a little bit about this, because I recently helped one of my breeder friends whelp puppies, and it was a lot of fun. And I also learned a lot, because when you're in person, that is the best learning experience. Then you can Google all day, but being there as it's happening, oh, you can learn so much. And I really did. It was so much fun. I had a very good time, and oh, the puppies are so cute. And I want to talk more about that. Oh my gosh. But yeah, so that being said, add to the list. Let me know in the comments if you have more to add to what I had on the list. Let me know if you have any questions about ethical breeders. This is something that the general public doesn't know about, and it's understandable, but you, as the general public, have to do your research. Do not trust a breeder. If I start breeding, do your research and then decide to trust me or not. But that is something, if you put your blind trust in anyone without research, you are asking for trouble. So that being said, thank you so much for watching, liking, and subscribing, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!